Hi, I'm Glenn,
And I'm Mark.
and welcome to another episode of Masonic Unity, the Right Stuff, Profiles in Masonic Leadership. And we are joined today with Most Worshipful David Tucker, who's past Grand Master of the Grand Lodge, New Jersey. Most Worshipful Sir, it is wonderful to have you here with us.
Thank you. It's indeed a great opportunity to be able to interview you, to kind of, allow you to talk to people out there who either have never heard of Freemasonry or have been members for years and just sort of, expound your wisdom.
Exactly. Now, to start off, we are actually not in our normal haunt here. Normally, Mark, where are we?
We're normally in Trenton, it's the historic Trenton Masonic Lodge up there in Trenton on Barrett Street.
On the second floor, but today we are at the old Brearley Masonic Lodge in Bridgeton, New Jersey on Bank Street. We're going to be doing a couple of sessions looking at some of their artifacts and taking a tour of the building, but we wanted to take advantage of the fact that we had the opportunity to be with Most Worshipful Brother Tucker here. So it's wonderful to have you here to talk about your leadership, to be able to pass that on to younger leaders, to younger Masons, to the Masonic community in general.
Thank you.
So why don't we get into kind of like the meat of things, because a lot of our viewers are either Masons or are Masonic curious, or are the spouses and relatives of Masons. What drew you to our general craft?
Years ago, I was an amateur philosopher. I would read a lot about esoteric organizations, wisdom literature and such, and Masonry kept coming up. And I asked to join, and you let me in.
Yeah, that started you on your path.
Yes, sir.
Now, when was it? How long have you been in the craft?
Well, my story is strange. I came in 1990. And I came in as an entered apprentice, and I think it was in May, and then they told me my next degree would be in September. And in June, I moved and took another job, and didn't get my mail for a fellowcraft. And it was on my mind, and then, as I indicated earlier, I kept reading and having an interest, and I wrote to the lodge 16 years later.
Wow.
And they had to re-interview me, but then they let me come in and continue at Fellowcraft. So I've been a Mason over 30 years, but only a Master Mason about 17 years.
Okay. And when you came in through the lodge, what were your experiences? What were your thoughts? Do you remember?
I do remember. You hear so much when you come in through the degrees, it's hard to digest. It's overload. You feel good about it, and sometimes don't know why.
Yeah.
What I enjoyed were the men in the lodge were just all pillars of society. When I was a kid, you probably know some of the old names. You may not know, but you know Jack Percy. Jack Percy was the mayor of my town when I was a kid. My football coach was a Mason. My baseball coach was a Mason. Hand owned the hardware store in town. So everybody that was anyone was a Mason.
Yeah.
So it gives a good impression upon young men to see that.
That's great. And when you passed through your degrees, what were some of the positions you took as you moved up the chairs and even beyond, the lodge itself?
Probably had them all at one time.
Yeah.
I joined my lodge, and then we had a lodge that met during the day in my district, and they needed some help, so I joined there. So I sat in one office in my lodge and another office for that year in the other lodge.
Yeah.
And I joined all the York Rite bodies and Scottish Rite, and I enjoyed them all.
Yeah.
What was your year like as worshipful master? Any special memories?
No, I just nervousness. When you're worshipful master, I often tell the lodges that when you come in as a Mason, it's wonderful because you're developing yourself. You're getting lessons from others. You're reading. You're going through the chairs. It's about me, and you want to play your role to the best of your ability. Well, when you become worshipful master, it's no longer about me, it's about them.
Right.
True servant leadership, which I know you speak a lot about.
Yeah.
But it's practical too. I mean, I think that's the way to look at it, but you have to look at it that way. You know, I often tell the guys, they say, oh, I know what I'm getting into, and I'm ready. And you hope they don't get discouraged. And I said, well, the first time that you prepare for a degree, and you come to that degree, and the brother doing the lecture doesn't show.
Mm-hmm.
Things like that.
Yep.
Those are it's like anything in life. They're the times you get scarred by experience, but that's when you really learn the profound lessons.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
meaningful to
Yeah.
you at that time.
Yeah.
So leadership isn't just about bossing people around.
Right.
You have to have buy-in. They have to be on board. You have to groom people to participate and reward them for participating, and try to encourage them when they don't.
Yeah.
And that's the most important thing I think about being a worshipful master. Just think of the word. You know, you're the worshipful master.
Right.
What's it mean to be the master of anything?
Mm-hmm.
If you're the master of anything, you know that thing forward and backward, and you know it completely.
Yeah.
How many men today go into the East
Yeah.
really knowing it completely?
Well, that's why I like the fact that you mentioned that it was focusing on you going up. You weren't competing against anyone else.
Yeah.
You were just becoming the best Dave Tucker to be worshipful master that you could at that time.
When you play your role, it's about you fitting in where the people, the authority figures, put you. To do your best, to be a participant.
Yeah.
But then when you get in the big chair, if any one of the individuals in the system are off kilter, it affects you and the whole outcome of the endeavor. And
Right.
that's a heavy lesson that a lot of people don't learn until they've been disappointed.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, once you passed through being master, where did you go after being master?
Well, probably when I was a senior and junior warden, I was on the Brearley Lodge Education Committee and leadership committee. So after that, I spent more time in those.
Yeah.
I also served in all the offices of council, commandery, Royal Arch.
Okay.
So I spent time in those.
Right.
People used to say to me, well, you know, you're the head of one body this year, and then you have a role in two other bodies. You're doing too much. You know, you can't do that. You can't serve more than one master. Well, first of all, you're not serving a master to begin with.
Right.
And second of all, I used to tell them, it's like when you go to high school. Just imagine high school. You didn't only have one class a semester. You know, you would have English, then you would have math,
Right.
and then you would have science. And you gave it all its due attention,
Yeah.
and you were able to put it all together to improve yourself. So, you know, why not take part in the different bodies at the same time? In due measure. You have to pace yourself.
Yeah.
But you shouldn't have to do one thing to the exclusion of all others.
Yeah. Understood. Now, you also served as DRI and district deputy of your district. How did you find that kind of situation? Difficult?
Yeah, DRI, district ritual instructor, was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're everybody's buddy. You know, you show up to help them get through things, and you help practice, and it's very enjoyable. They don't look at you as the boss or anything like that.
You're a
But
resource.
yeah, you're one of the guys, a helpful one of the guys.
Yeah.
And it's enjoyable. And then to become district deputy, that's when you start having to tell people no
Yeah.
and correct it. And that's a little heavier. You know, you have to have the maturity to do it in the proper manner.
Yeah.
You have to correct people without turning them off to you and to the organization.
Are there any leadership lessons in that?
All of them are in that. Yeah. You know, again, it's not about being the boss. People think, well, people say it all the time. When I'm in that role, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, I always tell people, it looks easy,
Yeah.
but then try to do it.
It's not.
Consider bowling.
Yeah.
You give someone a ball and you say, throw this ball down the lane and just knock over the pins.
Yeah.
It's that easy.
Sounds easy, yeah.
But when you try to do it in application, that very easy process in application is very hard. And it's like that with leadership.
Yeah.
If someone needs correction and you correct them in the wrong way, they may leave.
Yeah.
They may be offended, embarrassed, and for their own vanity or hurt feelings, they may leave. Then again, if you're too light on them, if you want to be everybody's friend and joke around, then they won't get the message. They won't get the sincerity and the seriousness of the message if you're too lighthearted. So I think as a district deputy, that's where people really learn the role of problem solving and being a leader and worrying about the end result coming out right, too.
It's all about balance.
Absolutely.
And making sure you respect every individual's dignity and pride and what they bring, because they may have had a bad day, they may be all kilter that day. And just trying to balance all of it, because you can't be too permissive, but you can't be totalitarian either.
People will learn your heart,
Yeah.
too. I can be kind of harsh sometimes, and I don't mean to be. I'm just honest, and sometimes honest seems harsh. And some of the older grandmasters, even ahead of me, say, "Boy, some of the things you say to people, and they don't even get mad." Well, because they know I'm not trying to embarrass them or run them
It's
down.
not an ego thing.
Right.
It isn't. You know, imagine everybody has that one uncle that says inappropriate things, and he's hard on them, but they don't get offended because he knows in the end they love him.
Right.
And he loves them, and he's just trying to make them do better. He's not trying to make himself look better by running them down, but he's trying to keep everybody, you know, in a better pathway forward. And that's what a leader needs to do.
So after this deputy moved on to higher positions in the Grand Lodge and elected line, tell us a little bit about that, about your experiences going through the line, about leadership, and
It's like any middle management, I would think. It's hard to participate with the group and play your role as a low-level participant, the new guy, and still have a meaningful contribution. I used to hear so many people say, and I never agreed with it, well, you're the new guy, you're the junior warden. Your place is to look and listen for the first year or two. And then once you get your head around it, then you can participate. But it's just so wrong. You should be humble. You shouldn't. You should know your own limitations. But you're not there to look and listen and be a bystander. They need your efforts. When I was again, it's one of the things I say that sometimes could get you in trouble, but it didn't get me in trouble. I was a junior warden probably for about 6 months, and we had an elected line meeting. It was a heavy subject. A very prominent Mason had done something that wasn't right, and we were wondering how to correct it without making it worse. And I listened, and they talked for maybe an hour, the three ahead of me. And finally, the Grandmaster turned to me and he said, "Well, Junior," and I used to call him Junior as Junior Grand Warden, "what do you think?" And I said, "Well, I think we spent an hour when we knew what the answer was. We spent an hour trying to get around doing it. Right? All the talk we did was talking about ways not to do what needed to be done. And if we just simply do what needs to be done and keep moving, I think we'll be okay." And they laughed, and they're like, "It sounds like you summing it up like that." But I really agree with that. Everybody should make a contribution. Maybe you give a naive opinion, and then that'll be evident through the discussion. But you should still try to participate and make a mark.
Always have a voice. That's what I was always told. Always have a voice in whatever you say.
And not treat that person as the kid at the adults table.
Yeah, true. And even with the Grandmaster's not always right. And you don't have to always be right. But you always have to try to have a process that points you in the direction that's most likely to be right. And you're not going to get that without input from people at different levels. So, it is a team. It is a team effort. I get a lot of calls still this year. This morning I was texting with the Grandmaster quite a bit. And the role of the Grandmaster is to take the responsibility. Everybody has input, but if it goes bad, they're going to blame him. So all you can do is do your best to get all the information you can to make the best decision for the time you're in.
So the buck does stop there.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Don't remind you of that all.
Did you enjoy your time in the Grand East?
I did. It was hectic. It's like they say, kind of like trying to drink from a fire hose. You know, it's,
Right.
things come every day. A lot of stuff goes to the Grand Master that shouldn't.
Mhm.
It's like that in a lot of organizations.
Yeah.
You know, people have known you for many years, and then you get into the highest title in the organization, and then the brothers feel good. You know, I know Mark.
Yeah.
I came up with Mark. I can call Mark at home and ask him this
Yeah,
question.
exactly.
But what they don't realize is 15 other people called Mark that morning
Right,
too,
right.
you know, with the same sentiments.
Yeah,
And you have to respect the process.
yeah,
And some people would say, well, the Grandmaster shouldn't take their calls. But how are you gonna lead an organization where you close yourself to information coming your
Yeah,
way to make a
yeah.
good decision?
most definitely.
Many times you get that late night or early morning phone call that somebody tells you that you're being deceived, and they're right. You need that perspective. So you can't afford to shut people off to the flow of information.
Mhm.
You have to filter it and determine its value
Yeah.
and accuracy, but a leader should never turn themselves off to the information.
Very true. Very
So,
true.
we talked about the good things. Is there anything that really stands out that you're really proud of that happened during your year?
No. You know, people ask me that all the time. You know, they say I had a pretty good year. And people say very nice things, but it's awkward. They'll say, there was a lot of turmoil we had for several years. And in your year, there was no turmoil. So you healed things. And I just, you know, tell them, I didn't heal anything. You know, people, organizations will heal themselves if you leave them alone.
Mhm.
To do what
You
they
know?
do.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You create the environment
Mhm.
for contributions, participation, problem solving. And you play your role,
Mhm.
and don't be heavy-handed,
Yeah,
and let it play out, and usually they'll correct themselves. You know, you have worshipful masters that know more about dynamics of problem solving than the Grandmaster.
Mhm.
So let him make the initial decisions in his lodge. I had a grand orator. It was a very mature guy,
Mhm.
and he would call me and say, I had these calls, and I talked it over, and it got resolved. But they wanted to call you. But they didn't need to talk to me. They just needed to talk to somebody that would hear them out
Yeah,
and share the information.
Right.
And it's so many emergencies were resolved without them ever having to get the attention of the Grand Master and
Right.
detract him from
Right.
something that really needed
Yeah.
his attention.
So were they really emergencies?
Well,
Or
they
were they
can
just
be.
urgent?
Well, you know, some things are urgent, but you know, just imagine if somebody's about to do something pretty terrible,
Right.
and they think they're right, and they call you, and you give them some advice, and they change their course of action.
Mhm.
You averted a real emergency.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
in and of itself, it wasn't an emergency, but it was on the cusp of being an emergency,
Yeah.
and you prevented that. So many times that happened.
Yeah.
And then people say, oh, you've had an easy year. Well, when everybody plays their role, it's
Right.
light lifting for everyone, you know?
Yeah.
So we talked about the positive stuff. I gotta hit you with this also.
Yeah, sure.
Is there anything you would have done a little different?
Differently, yeah.
Yeah, you know, I think I tried to do it, and now as I see events happening and such, I would have recognized people more.
Okay.
Mm.
You know, a lot of guys, I think, miss the value in recognizing people. You know, if I'm to give Glenn a recognition for an effort he did, an accomplishment that was really great. Sure, Glenn's receiving the award, and it feels good to get a pat on the back. But what's more important is the message that sends to others.
Right.
Yeah.
You illustrate a success story. You
Yeah.
illustrate someone that's been moderate and did well.
Right.
That's of tremendous value beyond that one
Yeah.
person, maybe to 100 people.
Yeah.
So I tried to recognize people who had been overlooked. Another error of leadership is to aggrandize all of your friends. Right? Give your friends 5 or 6 awards, and someone in the districts that everyone knows has earned things over the years,
Mhm.
and because he wasn't boasting about himself at the dinner tables, it went below recognition.
It's very common, yeah.
And I gave a lot of recognitions to people that said, you know, thank God you recognized. I thought so many times. One fellow was, we were at a reception, and I recognized him for some things he did. And about 4 times that night, as the night went on, his wife kept coming up and thanking me.
Yeah.
She was so impressed that he got it. She was so proud of him. And all those nights he wasn't home, that little piece of paper on that one night, like, made it worth it to that family. And a lot of leaders don't recognize the value of that type of activity.
And part of the success of the Masonic family is all those people who are working behind the scenes.
Yeah.
You know, who are cooking the meals, who are making sure the trestle board gets out, or all the aprons are set up and we're ready and all with that. So recognizing them, it is important to do that.
And it's not just the Masonic family, it's also the
In life.
the blood family.
Yeah.
You know, because we spend so much time together as brothers that our families deserve that understanding as well.
Well, they appreciate it. They realize they're in it together.
Yeah.
You know, and if a man is out at Masonic meetings, somebody's running the show at home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if they have a healthy home,
Yeah.
then that's a wonderful testament to the spouse.
Yeah.
And it only takes a minute to print a certificate and
Right.
recognize that. And I think that's a great value. I would have tried to do more than that.
Yeah. What kind of leadership do you feel like you practice?
I don't know. I think I mix a lot of things.
Okay.
Like I said, I
a little bit of.
yeah, I was listening to a podcast on the way here on leadership, and it was talking about you really are, and some study was done where they say that you are a healthy mix of your 5 best friends. The people you surround yourself with, that you really, you know, they said if you want to be on a diet and your 3 best friends are overweight, the statistics are 85% that you're going to remain overweight. But if you hang around with somebody with a healthy lifestyle, and you notice even passively that can be enjoyable, you may adopt it too. Little things like that, you know. So in leadership, if you're just open to doing things that work, and it's always about investing in people. There's no more to it than that. You can't do it on your own.
Right.
Yeah.
You need people to help you. So you might as well encourage the people that are helping you to be the best they can be. Send them to seminars, you know, facilitate their nourishment and progression.
Yeah.
And then you'll reap the benefits of their neighbors too.
Was there any bit of leadership advice that just kind of hit you, like, I never thought of it that way? Like your initial one that really went, okay, I'm on my road, I guess I will be a leader, and I never thought about that. No?
No, I think in every problem that was faced, you just saw confirmation of the lessons you learned, you know, from
Everything builds on each other.
Yeah, people would get in trouble. We had prominent Masons get in trouble. We had beloved Masons wound up not being Masons anymore because they had like court battles going on. They had done other things that they got in such a level of trouble that they couldn't be a Mason anymore. And people would say, well, did you hear what happened? You have to suspend him. And I didn't suspend anyone. I called him and I said, what the hell happened? And he said, well, it wasn't my best day. I did something that wasn't right. And I said, well, you know we can't let you stay now. And they said, well, can I just leave? And, you know, and they were, you know, put into lodge, you know, commit with prejudice even. And so they weren't shamed that they were thrown out. That they recognized that their activities made their membership incompatible now. And on their own, they gracefully, with dignity, left the fraternity. And that's how it had to be. So even heavy things like that, you hate to see people leave. And you know, justice can be awkward sometimes. If someone has had 30 years of good behavior, and they do 1 or 2 major bad things, that don't mean they're a bad person. But in an organization like ours, that say we walk the walk with high values and reputation, one error can cause you participation in this organization.
Reputational risk. We talk about that in a lot of organizations.
But I think that the good thing is that as long as we know the structure and the rules before we start, we always have guardrails.
Guardrails, and we should be self-governing too.
I say that to people, You know, in my day job, when they come to me, they're in a lot of trouble. And they're like, well, you have to do something to help me. And I tell them, I'll help you, but you did it, I didn't. Right? So I'm gonna try to help you get a softer landing than probably what you deserve.
Right.
But in the end, you have to be responsible.
Yeah.
If you did it, then you get what comes with, like you said, you made a decision knowing the results.
It's all about accountability.
Right? And what's wrong with that? Nobody should be ashamed of letting people be responsible for their own actions.
Well, where do you see the Grand Lodge or Freemasonry in New Jersey going in the future?
I think about
I'll
that.
put you on the spot.
No, I think about that a lot. Matter of fact, I'll be speaking in a couple other states about that coming up. In my opinion, in organizational dynamics, the problem is doing what needs to be done. You know, academically, organizationally, it's impersonal. You know, it's something happened and you have to address it. You know, kind of like I was talking about earlier. People don't want to do that, and we have many, many brothers that become worshipful masters that are not prepared.
Right.
And when they land in that role of worshipful master, no matter how eager, no matter how loving they are at the fraternity, their, maybe leadership-wise, their immature actions can chase other people away.
Mm-hmm.
Good men will leave if they don't like their worshipful master. And usually they don't like him not because of something he did, but the way he treated them.
Because of that heart.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we let people become a worshipful master and grandmaster that everyone knows is unprepared. But they're like, well, that's the system. Well, that's why we're paying the price we're paying, right?
Yeah.
You know, again, I go back to, you know, worshipful master. You're supposed to be a master of something. If you put an amateur in charge, you can expect an amateur result.
Yeah.
It's impossible that through that filter you're going to get wonderful results because you didn't have a wonderful object going into begin. It was unperfected. It wasn't ready. And all organizations are like that, of course, but you know, we put people in as the treasurer. We put people in as a secretary that are not bookkeeper oriented. You know, I've had secretaries get in trouble, and I go talk to them, and they say, well, when everything's going on, I'm listening and I'm not writing. Well, you know, who let that guy be secretary to begin with? You know, he's supposed to be secretary to record what's going on, for others to review maybe later. And they went in with an immature perspective of that job. You know, when I was, for 2 years, I was deputy grand master, so I got to speak to the worshipful masters coming in at the annual meeting when we had the breakfast. And I said, my first year as deputy grand master, that I wanted to institute minimum qualifications to be a worshipful master.
So self-regulated.
Yeah, like, you know, you had to attend the leadership conference, you know, and you had to serve in certain things, you had to attend certain things. Maybe if you attended these things and you participated, you weren't perfect. But you would have more of a chance of having perspective than if you didn't.
That extra training.
Yes, and you know, 100 masters, they loved it. People had warned me, oh, they're gonna chew you up. No, I didn't get a negative comment. And then the next year, people were telling me, well, you have to put together what those minimum qualifications are. And then that's where the trouble came in.
Right.
No two people could agree. Everybody had their own opinion. And ultimately, it was so dividing of people, we didn't implement it. Because something that is well intended, that's improperly implemented, could do more harm than good.
I understand.
And it would have been a willfulness. And again, that's not a good look in leadership. So I regret doing that. But if you look at every organization that's successful, they all have minimum qualifications.
And there are other states that have those worshipful master requirements, and you have to earn a certificate.
I've been criticized by that a lot too.
Okay.
Yeah, the guys, they tell me, well, we don't care what other states do. You know, you keep bringing up these examples. Well, if you look at an example of another state where people are chosen, you know, in Pennsylvania, Massachusetts. They're older than us a little bit and bigger, but they have a very clearly delineated system of where the past Grand Masters and other councils and such, they determine, quite academically in conversations and meetings and such, that this person has all the traits that will be successful in playing that role. And the people that determine whether or not that person is prepared for the role are people that served in the role, so they do know. And I think they fared better than us on the whole, because they identify them and they mentor them over a period of time. And they've avoided some of the, back and forth that we've had. You can't have a grand master come in and push a couple programs and advocate for them and get them rolling, and the next guy come in and do away with it. It's not a good leadership thing to do, but the message it sends. So the next time somebody has a good idea, nobody's going to have buy-in.
Right.
Because the first thing they'll say is, why put your effort into it when the next guy can take it away? And the only way to prevent that, you can't prevent it, of course, everybody has the right to go their own direction in their year, but if they're talking together, if they're sharing the same experiences, the likelihood that they're going to depart from opinions from one year to the other so drastically is almost nil. As a Grand Master, I didn't do anything that my elected line said, don't do. If I thought it was good, that was the litmus test. If I couldn't convince them it was good, I wouldn't do it. If you can't articulate it and get buy-in, then maybe you shouldn't be doing it.
You're talking about, the self-regulating, making sure the qualifications for a warden, for a worshipful master. Isn't that very similar to the way trade unions work? You become a master architect, a master electrician, a master carpenter. There are certain requirements that you need, whether it be with a PhD, a black belt, an MBA, whatever. There are certain expectations that for you to have this, you must reach this bare minimum.
Absolutely. Well, because when they arrive and they're in that level of participation in getting it done, you can't afford for them to drop the ball.
Right.
So you have to be secure that they're ready to play a part, a meaningful part that's going to move the ball forward. And in Masonry, again, I hate to, especially on camera, seem negative, but you just can't put your friend in that position with your fingers crossed and expect he's going to do an admirable job.
Right.
If there's nothing, in the background that indicates his ability to perform at that level, no matter what your affection for him is. And I actually I had a couple friends who wanted position. And I said, no way, man. You can't do that. You can't do that, and I know you can't do that. And the one fellow was mad at me for about 2 weeks, and the other guy just said, well, then what can I do? And I said, well, how about this? You'd be good at that, don't you agree? And he said, okay. So, everybody's like, I don't want to tell my friend. I tell my friends all the time, I'm very honest, and none of my friends have left me honestly.
But as a friend and as a brother, you should be able to have that mature discussion, that mature, back and forth of, no, you're not qualified for this.
And if not, shame on him, not shame on you.
Right.
Shame on you if you put him in there knowing he's going to fail. The chances are he's
Why
going
would
to
you
fail.
say your friend or brother?
I say that all the time. They say, well, he's my friend. I said, well, you think you're doing him a favor, giving him a job he's going to fail at, and everybody's going to talk behind his back? You're not helping him out. You're going to get a bad result. The organization's going to get a bad result, and you're going to shame him.
Right.
And again, they're very basic leadership principles, but it's hard to do unless you feel them deeply in your heart.
Comes down to transparent communication.
And the fortitude to do the right thing.
That's the hard part.
People, a lot of times as Grandmaster, people say, oh, I wouldn't do that. And we talked about it, and I said, well, I'm convinced it's the right thing to do. And they said, well, ugly things are going to happen. And I said, well, then I'll deal with ugly things. And no ugly things happen.
Well, that's good. Well, is there anything you would like to pass along to any of our viewers, any young Masons? This is a chance to...
Well, what I'd like to say to those that are thinking about Masonry, give it a try. And we all complain about the window shoppers.
Yep.
They come in and they quickly leave. But you don't know what it is until you're in. You know, I read so many books. I read books on masonry. I read about Martinism, Rosicrucianism, Hermeticism, all those different things, and I imagine masonry was very similar to those, and we do have bits and pieces of those, but you have to come in and feel it, and feel if it's for you.
Yeah.
And for Masons that are new, first of all, I want to say you do not have to be an officer. I think we ruin a lot of people with that.
Yeah.
People want to come, they want to gain some wisdom,
Yep.
they want to hear some lessons, they want to better themselves, and then go home to their families.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, that's the core of the members, right? But we are so desperate for leadership and participation as an organization, which every organization is, we grab them too soon. And we put them into a chair that's not fun.
Right.
And you ruin their experience. You can't ruin their experience. You let it be their experience. You can't use them to enhance your experience.
Yeah.
Right? So you don't use them like position holders.
Yeah.
And that happens a lot. Someone was in trouble when I was a deputy grand master, and they sent me to the lodge to deal with it. And the worshipful master was very angry. And the senior warden was very angry with me, and they were friends. And we went into a room on the side, and I said, speak openly. You can say anything you want to me. You couldn't offend me if you wanted to, you know. And I realized the worshipful master had been a Mason 3 years and 4 months.
Wow.
And he was 3 months into a term as worshipful. And I said things to him. He actually said to me, and this is it's a bad story, but I think it illustrates something. He said to me, well, let's get this straight. You're the deputy grand master. You run Grand Lodge. But shouldn't you stay out of the business of me running this lodge? And that's when it dawned on me, he doesn't understand the structure. And I said, you run this lodge as long as your efforts and your product is pleasing to the Grand Lodge. This is the Grand Lodge's lodge, right? And the Grand Master has to be the gatekeeper of the ultimate result. And I could just tell by like the quizzical, he thought that he could stand against the Grand Master in the elected line because he was the master and it was up to him to do what he wants. Again, that's a failure to educate, a failure to train.
Yeah.
But you're going to get that rushing people through.
Yeah.
And I removed them from office, both of them. And then we went back there about 3 months later. The worshipful master actually got angry and left Freemasonry. But when I was Grand Master, the senior warden was master of the lodge and one of the best ones.
Wow.
And everywhere I went, he kept thanking me. He goes, boy, that night, he goes, when you started speaking, he said, I was so angry. And then I thought, wait a minute, what's going on?
Yeah.
And then he got with the program, and he's been a wonderful Mason ever since. You know, it's not my program, it's the program.
Right.
And people don't know that. When you rush them into positions of leadership, in many regards, you're setting them up for failure. So I would ask the Masons, especially the past masters and the past and current district deputies and DRIs, please don't give people something above their understanding at the time. If you're challenging them to learn a piece of ritual, if you're challenging them to participate a little more, that's healthy. But throwing them in the waters above, you know, their ability to understand, you're not doing them a favor. You're probably going to poison the well and lose that guy.
Yeah, understood.
So we've talked about some of what's inspired you, your leadership lessons. One good question I want to ask you. You're still young. What's going to be the legacy of most worshipful David Hamilton?
I don't know. You know, I got tired. I don't
What's
really
next for
think. What's next? I've got next. But you know, people say about legacy. Again, if you're playing your role from year to year, there's really nothing that you're going to put out there that is your legacy, because if the next guy coming doesn't groom it and maintain it, it's going to fail.
Right.
So again, you may set something in motion, but that's not yours, right? It's something you shared, and then somebody else is going to put their fingerprint on it going forward.
Yeah.
So that's why I don't really like that legacy thing, because people want to make a legacy, and I think they're setting themselves up for failure, because often they want to do something dramatic that's undone within the next 2 years.
So,
And that's a legacy of failure, right?
Right.
That's not a legacy
Yeah.
of positivity.
but that kind of conflicts with what you were saying, that, you know, as you're going up to become a martial master, it's me,
Mhm.
and then servant leadership comes in once you're qualified as a martial master, that it isn't about your legacy, it's about what's happening for the fraternity as a
Yeah.
whole, and how are you benefiting that.
And you can't wait till they get in that chair to learn that lesson.
Yeah.
Right.
We have to
It's not
teach
sink or
them
swim,
the best they
you know.
can. You know, the first couple times they're disappointed, it'll be more pronounced to them, but we have to have a system to teach that to them
Right.
before they arrive at that
Right.
location.
Well, they learn more from their failures than they do
Absolutely.
their successes, but as
People-
brothers, we need
People
to
ask
help
me
them.
that about mentors. Who are your mentors? I've learned more from bad examples than good ones,
Mhm.
right? Because when somebody's doing something and everything's falling in place, it looks automatic,
Yeah,
right?
it's easy.
Yeah.
How many people think
Yeah.
that? It looks automatic. It's not automatic. That guy is planning and preparing and grooming and
Mhm.
putting everything in a row so everything goes well. It's not automatic. So if he has a good year, maybe you can learn that he's a good example of planning. Make sure you learn that. But, you know, I've had you got a lot of grandmasters. I even named them all, you know, Bob Sheridan, of
Yeah.
course, you know. He was in my lodge and took an interest in me early and asked me to do things I didn't want to do. But I did them because I wanted to challenge myself, not
Mhm.
because he made me. But, you know, Jerry Sharp was in my district.
Mhm.
And I'd love to give a list of the ones that I learned what not to do from. But I would pay the price for that at some point in time.
Well, that's great. Well, thank you so much for being here talking to
Oh,
us.
it's been great.
Talking
Yeah.
to everyone online.
Thank you.
We really learned a lot. I know I learned a lot. I learned a lot after time with you. So I really appreciate you coming out and being with us.
And
Thank
hopefully our
everybody.
viewers-
Yeah, thank everybody for watching and listening.
Yeah.
This is a wonderful program. Please, in your spare time, invest in watching the episodes.
Thank you.
And like I said, you may learn from some things I said today that you disagree with, and it may increase your resolve, and then that's a success. too.
Right.
You know?
Well, thanks for joining us. We have been the Masonic Unity, the Rite Stuff, Profiles of Masonic Leadership. Normally we are at the Historic Masonic Temple on the
Second floor.
second floor at 100 Barrack Street. Tune back in and see some more of our exploits, and we'll see you soon. Thanks,
Bye.
take care.
Oh, but no. Make sure you like this video so we can do more videos on Masonic leadership. Make sure you subscribe, and we'll see you back next time.
Take care. Thanks.
See you later.
Bye-bye.